All right, so I am back on my Joe and Charlie. I feel so lucky. I just woke up naturally before 6 a.m. Got to do my prayer. Got a good message. I don't know why they consider themselves the Blues Brothers. It's kind of cute, but I'm restarting again. I believe I was at 36, 25. And they were talking about the basic instincts of life. And was there any flipping around? Not much, but is it good to do notes? I think it is. It talks about Bill writing, he wasn't a spiritual giant. He was not a great student of human nature. Bill was a night school lawyer and a New York City stock speculator, yet he was able to write one of the most spiritual books the world has ever seen dealing with human nature. Surely God took a hand in writing the big book and used Bill's hand to write the book. And I know that it was originally called the 100 Men and One Woman, or Anonymous Men and One Woman, or something like that. I don't know exactly. That there was 100 people who helped write this book too. He had the last say in it. So we talk about the 12-12, and there's a really good part about spiritual information. I like what he says here. Basically, that's what he says in the 12 and 12. The big book has always been the basic text and will always be. You simply cannot work the program out of the 12 and 12. I see lots of people try it, but they can't do it unless there are no directions on how to get the steps. And I think that's why a lot of people love it. They can get in it and dance around and philosophize, and they never have to do anything except talk. But there is some information in there that is usually invaluable, that if we can see it and understand it and accept it, it makes the working of the steps out of the big book so much simpler and so much easier. I believe that too. And honestly, I mean, if it comes down to taking a drink or reading something out of the 12 and 12, go read something out of 12 and 12. Decision sets us up in 3 plus really decision. Well, where were we? Let's look at them for just a moment. I think it will make it a lot easier to be able to see why we are in need to make our decision in 3. Plus it sets us up really with information for step 4. All right, so there are handout sheets. I can't remember where they are. He said that all human beings are born with 3 instincts of life. If you can see this, they are God-given. They're absolutely necessary for survival of the human race, and therefore they are a good thing. So the first one we have is a social instinct. And just to paraphrase from page 103, we have the desire to be liked, the desire to be accepted, the desire to be respected by other people. Several terms under social instinct I heard him use were, and I read, is also companionship, prestige, self-esteem, pride. And he talks on the other page about pride being an excessive, how much he wanted that pride. He wanted, what was it? He said, all I ever wanted to be as a young boy growing up, I wanted to grow up to be a man who walked tall with pride and just a little bit sideways like John Wayne does. And until I looked it up in the dictionary, it says pride is an excessive and unjustified opinion of oneself. Right. So we either think too well of ourselves or too little of ourselves. In either case, it's not the truth. Personal relationships are relationships with other human beings in the world around us, ambitions and plans for the future. I remember, my sponsor saying something like, we can catastrophize just as much as, we're the center of the universe and it's all about us, but we're the biggest piece of poop. It's that inferiority. What do they call it? That superiority with an inferiority complex. We really just, we don't know how to right size things. We don't know how to right size our place in the world, because society teaches us those things as we grow up. It'll vary in different parts of the world. One part of the world would perhaps, where is it? One part of the world, perhaps it's a good education. Another part of the world, it's to be a large landowner. Another part of the world, it's to have a large family. Any number of things based upon where we live in the world. And as we grow up, they teach us these things, and we ourselves set goals for ourselves as to what we want to become in the future. And if we're going to reach those goals that we set for ourselves, we're going to have to work at it. You can't just be a bum and sit on your duff to be successful and people like you and accept you. If it's a good education, you're going to have to work at it, whatever it might be. Okay. And yeah, I haven't been able to fucking work at anything lately because I've just been so out of it. All right. So this is good. Like, I love waking up to this. This is so much fun. Um, how many of us have done it? We set the goal and we literally worked our tails off for years. And the day we reach the goal, they pat us on the back and they say, Joe, you're a fine fellow. You're a good man. You're doing great. There's a feeling that comes over us, which one of those indescribable feelings, a great feeling. The only thing wrong with it is it seems to be just temporary. No sooner do we get the goal, do we get the praise, do we get the recognition, do we get the prestige. Oh shoot, where are we? From it, that we look around and we say, is this all there is to it? We set another goal and we work and we work and we strive and we strive and we sacrifice and we reach the new goal and we get praise and recognition and it feels good, feels great, doesn't last long, and we set another goal, right? So for me, that was, I'd worked really hard in ballet, but I was too big to be in ballet. I probably would have gone into martial arts had I been known what I know now. But jazz, modern, nightclubs, because I was in nightclubs by the time I was 15, just kind of dancing around, being an idiot. And so of course I was going to become a stripper, right? A plus B equals C. Of course, that was what was going to happen. Period. Because that's what I was exposed to. That's what society literally taught me while I was growing up. But let's keep going here. It seems to create within we human beings an insatiable desire for more and more power, more recognition, and we're not getting it fast enough, or they're not giving it to us in a way we think they ought to. So what do we do about it? We start taking shortcuts. We start doing a little lying, a little conning, a little manipulating, a little stepping on other people's toes and climbing on their backs. And the instant we do so, we create pain and suffering for others. They in turn retaliate against us and create pain and suffering for us. So it's plain to see that a life on self-will could hardly ever be a success under those conditions. We will always be in collision with people, places, and things. The second basic instinct he talks about is the instinct for security. Right? Just to paraphrase, all human beings have been born with a desire to be secure, right? That's why people take out insurance policies. And for some people, that insurance policy is service. These are my notes, and they're terrible. I can barely read them, but I did my best. If we didn't have to have the desire for security, we wouldn't be motivated to survive. We get our basic needs met, right? So food, clothes, shelter, etc. And this is God given for survival. All right. Once again, the great reward is that great feeling that comes with the moment of successful completion of the goal. How many of us have done it? We set for a goal for a new dress, for new shoes, for new stuff, for new drapes, for the new couch, for a new home, for a new car, for the piece of property, for the business. And we work and we work and we strive and we strive. And the day that sucker is paid for, nobody can take it away from us. What a great feeling that is. I never got that far in life. I was just trying to survive. But for me, like surviving some of the stuff that I've been through, that was the moment I had arrived. Do you know what I mean? When I'm drinking in the club and I'm just like partying and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have to take shit from anyone now. No one tells me what to do because I got money, buddy. Hell, back when I was a kid, hardly anybody owned their own homes. Once in a great while, somebody would buy a home and they would sacrifice everything they had to. You can imagine where he came from. In his age group, people couldn't afford to own a home, but they are from the South. So he talks about paying that sucker off. The day they paid it off, the feeling was so great. They would call in the neighbors and we would have a great party and celebrate it by burning the mortgage. How great that was. The only thing wrong with that is it's just a temporary feeling. Okay, so no sooner he got that sucker paid off that I looked around his house I looked around and his house is bigger than mine. He has a Cadillac and I'm driving a Chevrolet. He's got a Brooks Brothers suit. I bought mine at Kmart. I found that hilarious because I don't know what Brooks Brothers is. I know what Cadillac and Chevrolet is, but I didn't know there was that big of a difference. And that causes us to set another goal. And we work and we work and we strive and we strive and we reach for a new goal and it feels good. Doesn't last long. We set another. Seems to create an insatiable desire for more and more and more. And we're not getting it fast enough. And they're not giving it to us the way we think they should. So what do? We take shortcuts, we lie, we cheat, we con, we manipulate. And the instant we do, we hurt other people, they retaliate against us, creating pain and suffering. So it's plain to see that a life run on self-will can hardly be a success. The third basic instinct he talks about is sex, something I'm apparently not allowed to have because sex addicts who are openly being sex addicts are making sure I don't go on a regular date with people. It just feels fucked up. That's why I'm doing this. Something fucked that. He says all human beings are born with the desire to have sex. Now, it may get turned off by bad teachings or bad happenings, but he said all human beings are born with a desire to have sex because if we didn't have sex, we can't reproduce ourselves. And if we can't reproduce ourselves, sooner or later, the human race is going to fail to survive. Yeah, I just don't even want to go there now after the crap I've been through. And I don't feel like, he talks about the rewards, and if the rewards are I can't breed and I'm just a fuck bag, it's just a one-way street and I'm getting shit on, like what's the reward for having sex with any of these fuckers, right? It's plain to see that a life run on self-will can hardly be a success. I just rather not have sex, right? Like I'd rather take a time out. The fulfillment of these things are so pleasurable that all human beings from time to time will overdo one or more of these areas and create pain and suffering for others. You'll notice on a little chart there's a circle called self. That's where self-will comes from. It comes from these three basic instincts of life. You also notice coming out of the self circle, there is one thing called wrongs, which is another word we need to look at. I really like this part. Okay, so somewhere we got the idea that wrongs meant a list of dirty, nasty, filthy items. But if you go to the dictionary and you look it up, you'll find several definitions of it. Wrong, incorrect judgment of other people equals resentment, or wrong, incorrect believing equals fear, or wrong are the harms and the hurts that we do to other people. Now, it's easy to spot a selfish, self-centered human being, one who is running on self-will, okay, and not on God's, right? Now, we're gonna talk a little bit about. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna bring this up. I don't like the word God, therefore, da 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 da. I've met atheists who this is not rocket surgery for. And I'm going to get into this after I end this paragraph or reading this paragraph. One who is running on self-will, not running on God's will, selfish, self-centered human being is always madder than hell. Damn him, damn her, by God I'll show them. They're not going to treat me that way. A selfish, self-centered human being is always scared to death. They can't depend on God. They can't depend on other people. And if we're alcoholic reaching the end of the road, we can't depend on ourselves or any people. Whoa, I can't even read this. Can't depend on ourselves any longer. We're running absolutely scared to death all the time. A selfish, self-centered human being, in order to fulfill basic instincts of life, are always overdoing and creating harms and hurts for others. Then we've got to be scared to death of what they're going to do when they catch us. And even then, if they don't catch us, God dwells within us. We don't know the difference between right and wrong. Guilt and remorse associated with those things begin to eat us up. Yeah, and that's when you got some dry drunk stuff happening. Okay, so when we talk about a higher power, a lot of times what we're talking about is you've got these basic set of rules in any religion. I just picked up a lantern the other day and it's multicolored glass. If I put in a candle, it's all looking at the same light. It's like there was a pope. I can't remember which pope said that. We have a basic set of morals and principles. Otherwise, it's going to be dog eat dog. People are going to go after, where was it? Society will fall apart. This is the part I wanted to read. I don't know if I actually read this, but I'll go back and read it again, even if I have read it, right? The first thing He talked about it as a social instinct. He said all human beings are born with a desire to be liked, accepted, or respected by other people. He said that all human beings were born with the desire to come together in groups with other people. He said if we didn't have those desires and cared nothing for each other, that the world would go into complete anarchy. Dog eat dog situation would reign, and eventually, under those conditions, the human race would fail to survive. So if we have God dwelling within us, good, orderly direction, all right. We know the difference between right and wrong and guilt and remorse associated with those things, just not shitting where you eat. 10 commandments, that kind of stuff. Basic stuff. Thou shalt not kill, steal, covet thy neighbor's wife, this, that. A person whose mind is filled with resentment, a person whose mind is filled with fear, a person whose mind is filled with guilt and remorse does not feel good. All right. So this is just common sense and this is logic. But if you need God for this, yeah, good. If you need good orderly direction God, or if you need Christian God, went through wrongs. I think what I wanted to bring up was this. And I appreciate freedom of thought, freedom of religion. I think it's a great idea that we're very inclusive, right? And we've worked hard to be. And for me, it's like, I don't think I'm ever going to marry that guy who's going to be a millionaire. I'm not looking for that bread tab cure. I can't depend on another man for my life. I'm going to have to worry about myself, and that's okay. If someone marries someone rich and that helps and then they're working too, that's great. But for other people, like if I'm doing the same work as a man and I'm not getting the pay the same because I'm a woman, but I can do the same labor they can do, right? I should get equal pay. Regardless of how much I like Jordan Peterson or not, I should get equal pay. That's how I feel about that. Okay. Yes. Would I go to another country, okay, and where their main religion is on their money, and tell them, yeah, no, you can't do that. And oh, by the way, that main language, you can't speak that either. There's a part in the big book where they talk about people being fallible, and they talk about people going to religious war, and I get really pissed off with it too. I want to see religion abolished when we're blowing up the Middle East again, and we're still doing. I want to see religion abolished. I get really sick of it. I get sick of these religious wars. But if you look at Russia and Ukraine, that's not a religious war. That's a territory war. So really what it is it's people just, would I go to China and tell them they can't be communist? Would I go to Singapore, where there's 5 main languages and tell them, nah? How about Malaysia? Am I going to tell them, nah? Right? So it's the same thing here. I'm not going to tell them no, right? Especially if there's parts of that I agree with, core values that I agree with. And everybody's got to have some kind of core values to survive. That's kind of how it goes. It maintains cohesion within the society or tribe. It's about survival. So it's kind of suicidal to tell everyone, nah, people are fallible. I'm going to go to page 103. Oh, wait, I already went back. I'm going to come back here again. All right. So where are we? So at the very least, we're going to have to do something about this selfish, self-centered human being. And it seems the only way you can do anything about that is through God's help, because God made self-will. And only God has the power to overcome that. Or at the very least, we're going to have to do something about these resentments and these fears and this guilt and remorse in order to find peace of mind, serenity, and happiness for good long-term sobriety. Every human being in the world today could fulfill these 3 basic instincts at the level that God intends, or they feel God intends, right? There would be no conflict on earth today, but all human beings have self-will. I've also seen people anesthetize on God, anesthetize on Jesus to the point where they're still acting out. I don't know if that's the answer, right? Some people will say that's the answer. Well, yeah, it's the answer, but you got to take direction and you got to take action, right? All human beings from time to time will overdo in one or more areas, creating conflict for others and for themselves. I never knew that. I just knew I was always in trouble. I just knew I was always madder than hell. I just knew I was always scared to death. I knew guilt and remorse was eating me up, but I didn't know where it came from. So they gave me the rules, but they never taught me how to play the game. AA taught me how to play the game, and now I know how to play the game. I don't break the rules anymore. I don't hurt other people, and I'm not scared to death, and I'm not filled with guilt and remorse. And this is the greatest information I've ever seen about what makes me tick and what causes me to do the things that I do. So you can imagine when, a bunch of people are kind of running out of that Midtown group or Simeon or some kind of AA call, and then they're infiltrating and they're pushing out people they've been through the 12 steps. They don't want you working with a sponsor, and they don't want you sponsoring anyone, and they create a lot of smear campaigns and a lot of doubt, and they use a sick hazing ritual, and they have a lot of sexual dysfunction going on, and they project that onto you, or they have you isolated so they can create a moral injury to debunk you as a human being, to turn you back into their fuckbag kicking post unpaid helper heavy lifter. And there's other people who've done the program as is. You can imagine, right? There's going to be conflict, but I don't have to live in that conflict, and I also don't have to take the bait, right? So there's the big book, page 62. Uh-oh, where did I go? Right there. Paragraph 1, line 3. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, and our self-pity? Yeah, that's our natural state, like right there. Okay, that is without a doubt our natural state as alcoholics. Me, mine, more. It's always about us and what can I get more of. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to talk about selfishness, self-centeredness. This is the big book, page 62, paragraph 2, line 1. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate seemingly. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Alcoholism, I, self, and me. You see that if you don't have a God in your life, and I didn't, there's only one thing left to live by, and that's the satisfaction of 3 basic instincts. And I tried to live my life based upon satisfaction of those basic instincts, and I overdid in many of those areas. So Buddhism is considered kind of an atheist religion. And if you were to go be a Buddhist monk, you got to be ready to let go of all these basic instincts. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. The alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of the selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible, and I can't heal my sick mind with a sick mind. Only God can make that possible. Okay, so we're talking about this is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God, and really, whether you're a Christian or an atheist, Buddhist, whatever, it's ego, right? We're talking about ego. We're talking about playing God. Is it good to have some kind of instincts towards life for survival? Yeah. What did they used to call it in yoga? There's 2 different types of yogis. And when one is the mother or the father who has a family, I forget what they call it, but it's very different. You have priests that can get married, and then you have priests that can't get married. You have yogis that get married. You have yogis that don't, right? And when we're talking about the instincts here, yeah, this is a choice. Do you really want to give this stuff up? Well, people are kind of conspiring to take it away. Do you want to be pulled into a Buddhist cult, or is that important? Do you want to be pulled into a Catholic cult? Do you want to be pulled in Christian? Are you ready to be a nun? Are you ready to be whether it's Buddhist or Catholic? Yeah, I don't know. And if I need to make money because shit's gonna hit the fan if I don't, I'm being pressured, right? Post this Amanda Todd trial and all the stuff leading up to it. Yeah, what do I do, right? It's not optimal for me, but were there times where I'd go work in the club, not drink, and not hang out with married men in the after hours? Yeah, I'd direct them to married after hours, but I wouldn't hang out with the married men outside. I had to get really strong about that because I had been burned so much. Didn't matter what I believed or didn't believe. That was a fact of life, that I was going to get burned by it. So I learned not to. That was it. I had to to survive. Now, if God has directed the what? Now, if it is a God directed world, then those of us who have been self directed and those of us who have tried to direct everything and everybody around us, we've been trying to do God's job for Him. We're not God. We've just been playing at being God. And the book says we're going to have to quit doing that if we want any peace of mind, serenity, and happiness for the future, I think. I agree. I know when I'm off. And I know when I'm going down a dark path, and I was talking about that last night. This is for me, like all these insinuations and all this coercive stuff. I have to be really careful of that, and I have to be honest with myself. And if I have to talk it out this way because of my Asperger's, and that's the way I do it, because I don't, there can be an argument. I'm not picking up on the social cues that I want to, or it's selective. I've had people accuse that too, you know. I think what it comes down to is that if you're invading someone's space, if you're breaking the law, if you're battering them, and they kind of have the right to go, because coercion is not consent. You know what I mean? And that's okay. We had the big book, page 62, line 30. What? So line 30. He is the principal and we are his agents. He is the father and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and the concept was the keystone of this new and triumphant arc through which we pass to freedom. Right. So how can we translate that if you're not a Christian? Good orderly direction. It's really easy. Just don't shit where you eat, right? Logic. Okay? We're going back to logic, and we're going back to basic common sense, Am I master manifester? Sure, why not? Can I make a greedy list for Santa Claus? Well, if others will be helped. That's what they say. Can I have this expectation without action? No, I can't. No, I can't. Where am I going? All right, so there's a story about the fellow. He worked for 6 days and rested. Now, my knowledge that he didn't have to go back to work anymore, so it looks like as though there wasn't any work being done around here. It's going to be me doing the work. The principle is we are his agents and he's the father. We are his children. He's the boss. I'm the employee. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arc through which we pass to freedom. Now he's referring once again to that wonderfully effective spiritual structure. So we got step 1, you got your willingness. Okay, that's your foundation. Step 2, believing, cornerstone. Now he tells us what we're building, a triumphant arc through which we're going to pass to freedom. He said the keystone to that arc is simple idea that we are going to let God be the director. The old days when they built arches, the stones were stacked loosely without mortar, and they began to lean together, and there was a center stone up here called the keystone. If it was cut right, it would support the entire arch, but it wasn't. It would slip out and the arch would collapse. Well, the keystone of the new triumphant arc through which we were going to pass to freedom is the simple idea that we're going to let God be the director. And for most of us, that's the first time we ever had the idea. If we once had it as children, we lost it somewhere. Instead of letting God be the director, we were the director. The cause we told God, because we told God what we wanted. God, do this, God, do that, God, give me this, God, give me that. Some people just say that to the world. World, give me this, world, give me that. And sometimes that's okay, depending on the motives. God, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. And now what is it? And now only did, oh, I got a battery warning. And now not only did we direct God, we directed everybody around us. Now we quit doing that, and we're going to let God be the boss. And from this day on, now this is a radical idea for people like us. This is the decision that we're making. All right, so we sincerely took such a position. All sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer being all powerful. He provided what we needed. If we kept him close and performed his work well, established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our own little plans and ideas and designs, and more we became interested in seeing what we can contribute to life. Right. And I think that's where we're ending. And I'm just going to go see if I can find a picture of the keystone here. I have to go back. So that's me wrapping it up. I believe I wrapped it up. I don't know, to check again. That would have ended, where was that? That was about 109. I think this is part of a handout. I don't know. I hope I didn't muck it up, but I did muck up this one. There we go. I wrote in it. There's your step 1, right? Your willingness, your foundation. This is your step 2, cornerstone, believing, decision, step 3, keystone, and this is the way to a faith that works, the arc through which we pass to freedom. Yay, here I go. Woo! And did it change me to be around people who are like this? Yeah, Christians, Catholics, Buddhists, atheists, freaking witches, like pagans. I was Muslims. Oh wow, Jews. I've met a lot of different types of people, a lot of natives. Some are spiritual, some are not. Let's take a look here. I'm still at how it works, but I guess I got to do some more work on, or maybe it just ended there, and maybe I got to go on to the other one, the next tape. Okay, so that tape ended somewhere around 109. I think. I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to end it here. And then I've got the next one downloaded. And that's going to be going into step 4. It's not perfectly